Coming up here on the Raiders Report, did the Las Vegas Raiders hire a new OC, or are they going to stick with somebody on the staff? We'll talk about Norv Turner joining the Silver and Black. Does Shedeur Sanders want to be a Raider? If you don't follow Shedeur on social media and maybe you live under a rock, you got to see what Shedeur had to say, at least on social media. And then, who's going to be the Raiders' starting quarterback in Week 11? The Raiders got a Week 10 bye. Antonio Pierce did not name a starting QB in terms of Desmond Ridder or Gardner Minshew. I'm going to tell you on today's show who Antonio Pierce should go with. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you do so when Raiders news happens. I don't care when, what time, what day of the week it is. I'm going to keep you up to date. When the Raiders fired Luke Getsy at midnight, we were here breaking it all down. When the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels at 1 a.m., we went live for 26 straight hours. NFL trade deadline day, we're here live even longer. If you want Raiders content, absolutely free, make sure you subscribe. Nobody can compete with the Raiders Report. So the Raiders, if you didn't see, did end up hiring Norv Turner, and he is going to serve as an offensive assistant consultant for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the reason why this is a big-time name is because Turner was retired. He's 72 years old, hasn't coached in the NFL since 2019, and when he was the head coach of the Silver and Black back in 2004, 2005, he was 9-23. When you go back and you look at that, though, he was really trying to, I think, put a lot of holes together because the Raiders were a good football team. They kind of got stripped down. They moved on from a lot of their players, and Turner got put in an awkward spot. With 15 years of NFL experience, though, I know that it was being circulated yesterday that Turner could be the Raiders' new OC. I'm simply up here telling you that Norv Turner is not the Raiders' new OC. He was simply hired to help out his son, Scott Turner, who is probably going to be the Raiders' new OC. Ian Rappaport was the one that broke the news this morning. The Raiders are hiring one of the NFL's most respected offensive minds, bringing in Norv Turner as an assistant to help guide their offense. And when you think about this move, and I know it was reported late last night, but when you think about this move, this is a move that is showing yet again that this Raiders team is not just going to lay over and play dead. They are trying to win football games at 2-7 because Antonio Pierce and this entire staff knows if they want a job next season, they have to win this season. So is Norv Turner going to be the next Raiders OC? No, it's not going to happen. That is tuck rule, tuck that. It's not going to be Norv Turner. Yes, he is on this staff. Yes, he is going to help out. But really, this move I don't think should surprise a lot of people for multiple reasons. One, Antonio Pierce has brought in Joe Philbin, Marvin Lewis, Tom Coughlin, and now he's going to bring in another head coach in Norv Turner to help, kind of get this ship going on the right track. But the reason why Turner is brought in is because Scott Turner, who right now is the Raiders' pass game consultant, is the front runner to get the job. When the Raiders fired Luke Getsy a few days ago, I set up here live on the show and I said, it's going to be Scott Turner. He's going to be the one that takes over the play calling duties. So the fact that Scott's just bringing in his dad to just help out a little bit doesn't surprise me all that much. I do kind of roll my eye a little bit because I want the Raiders to hire a young, offensive-minded guy. And yes, Scott Turner is a young, offensive-minded guy, but I don't want them bringing in a old-school offense. And Norv was never afraid to chuck the rock. And I know Antonio Pierce said on Monday that if they have to throw the ball 50 to 60 times a game, that they're going to do it. I anticipate the Raiders, don't get me wrong, they're still going to try to run the rock behind JPJ, but I really do think that the Raiders are going to turn into a more pass-friendly team than what people actually realize. Coming up here on the show, let's get into something that's very interesting around Shedeur Sanders, because you should subscribe to the Raiders Report for getting news around Norv Turner, for getting news that the Raiders fired Luke Getsy, But the other reason why I want people to watch this show is because rumors are important. Rumors help. I think a lot of times you can find out little stories, kind of put a jigsaw puzzle together like Sherlock Holmes, and you can get to news quickly. One of the stories that was being talked about yesterday was around Shedeur Sanders. So before I get into the story, I'm going to make this the pinned comment here on today's show. Do you want Shedeur Sanders to be the Raiders quarterback next season? Give me a yes. Give me a no. My answer is going to be after this YouTube ad break. Do I want Shedeur to be the Raiders' next quarterback? I'll tell you this. I would rather have Shedeur than anybody we have on our team, and the only person that I would want more than Sanders is Cam Ward. But the reason why we're talking about Shedeur is because he's made it known that he's going to be taking his talents to the NFL in 2025. He recently had a class, and they were like talking to him about, hey, like, what are you going to do next semester? And he was already like, I'm not going to be here next semester. I'm going to be going to the league. Shedeur also has tweeted, thank you, God, after every Raiders loss this season. And currently the Silver and Black hold the number 6 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. I will admit this. I do think that this story, and you're about to see it because Shedeur, he has tweeted, after every single Raiders loss, thank you, God. When you look at some of these dates, though, like, this one right here, for those that don't know, this is a Monday, technically not a Sunday. I'll also say that people I do think that are religious probably pray to God on Sunday. I'm not going to take this and too much into consideration that Shedeur is going to be a Raider and Shedeur wants to be a Raider. I do know that Shedeur wants to be a Raider. What I'm saying is, though, I'm not saying that these tweets have anything to do with the fact that the Raiders are losing football games. Though, here's my question and kind of my thing that I want to talk about today. Is the Raiders' top quarterback in 2025 Shedeur Sanders? Where is the most likely option under center? Is it Shedeur? I think it is. And I'm going to give this one 4 just win, babies. Believe it, baby. Last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a show trying to predict who is the most likely option to be the Raiders quarterback. And I do. I think it is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur and Dion have both listed the Silver and Black as the top destination for him in 2025. And out of any quarterback that I think has entered the draft since probably Eli Manning, has maybe the most say of where he wants to go and where he actually is going to go. Shedeur already has a phenomenal relationship with Mark Davis. Deion Sanders also has a phenomenal relationship with Mark Davis. Tom Brady and Shedeur, they worked together this offseason. We've also known that Mark has said that Tom Brady's going to have a big say of who that next quarterback is going to be next season. It's one of the reasons why the Raiders wanted to bring in Tom Brady as a part-time owner. So when you add up all of these things right here, on top of the fact of we know what Mark loves. Mark loves money. And there's not going to be a quarterback that's going to be able to generate more money for an NFL franchise, I think, ever in the history of the NFL draft in his first year than this guy right here. If they can turn Colorado into the most watched college football team in the country, then guess what? I think that the Raiders, if you have Shedeur, are going to turn into the most watched NFL team in the entire country. Why? Does that matter to Mark? Because it results in dollars and cents. So I do. I think the quarterback that's most likely to be under center, even if the Raiders are picking 10, I think Shedeur and Dion have enough pull, have enough power to go, Shedeur's not going there, Shedeur's not going there, Shedeur's not going there. I want Shedeur to go here, here, and here. And when you look at the list of teams that Dion has kind of said, yeah, this is where we want Shedeur to go, the team that's the most likely to be in the top 5, the team that's the most likely to be in the top 10, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. So not saying thank you, God, was around the Raiders. What I am saying, though, is there's a lot of smoke around this guy being a Raiders quarterback next season. Coming up here on the show, who should start at quarterback for the Raiders Week 11? Hell, I kind of wish it could be Shedeur Sanders at this point. Antonio Pierce failed to name a starting quarterback. After I tell you about our sponsor here, Game Time, I'm going to tell you who I would start at quarterback for the Silver and Black. If you don't already know, Game Time is the #1 place where you guys should be getting your tickets to concerts, theaters, Raiders games. If you're planning on going to a new city or a city that you've been to before, I definitely think that you should download the Game Time app right now. Create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. I love Game Time because when I go out to Vegas, there's so many different things to do. Maybe you want to go to an Adele concert. Maybe you want to go see, I don't know, Tom Segura. Chugs and I love Tom Segura. Maybe you want to go watch the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe you just want to go do something else besides watch the Raiders because, quite frankly, I can't blame you for doing that. But because there's so much to do in Vegas, your time is very valuable. And because Vegas right now is extremely expensive, when you download the Game Time app, you can wait an hour before you go to something. You can get a ticket, and you can assure yourself that you're going to be getting a good price. Hell, if I'm going to a Raiders game anymore, I'm not booking a ticket before I go to Vegas. I would fly out to Vegas, which is going to be maybe a little bit more expensive. Hotels, maybe a little bit more expensive. And then I'm going to go to the tailgate. I'm going to wait for the ticket prices to drop because I guarantee you this, there's not going to be a single Raiders home game that's going to get sold out ever this season. It's not going to happen. And if you want to assure that, all right, I'm going to be able to go to the game, I'm going to be able to get a good price, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments. down in the description of today's show. That's what I would do if I planned on going to a Raiders game, because if you get a good price ticket, maybe you won't be so upset when the Raiders lose. Coming up, who should start for the Raiders Week 11? Should it be Desmond Ridder? Should it be Gardner Minshew? So I know there's going to be a few people who are like, Mitch, we should start Carter Bradley. Bump the brakes. I don't think that starting Carter Bradley is the right thing to do. But on Monday, Antonio Pierce talked to the media a little bit earlier than what he usually does, and it's not surprising. You're fine. It's not surprising that AP was asked, hey, who's going to be the Raiders starting quarterback going forward? Pierce is going to take 24 to 48 hours to look at who the new offensive coordinator will be. It's probably going to be Scott Turner, especially since the Raiders just hired Norv. And then, should it be Desmond? Should it be Gardner Minshew? You can pick one to start right now. I don't know what Antonio Pierce is going to do. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like I do know what AP is going to do. All I can do a lot of times on the show is what I would do. And I'm going to give my personal recommendation. So if you could start Gardner Minshew, type GM. If you could start Desmond Ridder, type DR. Let me know down below, because for me, I believe this. It's time to start Desmond Ridder. This is for Just Win, babies. Believe it, baby. And I'm going to tell you why that it's Desmond Ridder time. And I'll be real. I don't have a lot of confidence in Desmond Ridder. I don't think that anybody watching this show right now can confidently look at me and go, season is saved with Desmond Ridder. If anything, it's more of, I just don't believe in Gardner Minshew. And there's a part of me that wonders, can Gardner be better with Scott Turner? Can Gardner be better without Luke Getsy? Because you're seeing the worst version of Gardner Minshew with Getsy. But here's the truth. When Gardner Minshew steps out there on the field right now, I have never seen somebody with less confidence in himself. And honestly, I don't know how anybody that is a Raiders player right now can have any confidence in Gardner Minshew simply because he doesn't believe in himself. This is the point of the season where we need confidence. As a football team, as a coaching staff, you need to ooze confidence even if you don't believe it. And when Minshew's in that huddle right now, there's no confidence there. I don't know if Desmond's going to be able to bring more confidence, but I know this. Desmond's desperate. This is probably his last opportunity to get a shot in the NFL to start. And when desperate times, sometimes you get players that show up and play outside of their mind. I'll also say why it's Ridder time is this. Ridder offers more with his legs. And if the Raiders' offensive line is as banged up as what I think it could potentially be Week 11, then we need a quarterback that can show some escapability. We were hoping that we'd see a little bit more, I think, out of Minshew's escapability, but we haven't seen it this season. I mean, think about the amount of times where the pocket collapses just a little bit, and Minshew almost does his best Derek Carr impression, and then he just crumbles and he goes right down. Ridder is a little bit more of an athlete. Yes, he needs to be able to control the fumbling. I mean, he already had a fumble this past week, but with his legs, I think that that's going to be able to open up the running game with Alexander Mattison, because Jackson Powers-Johnson, I believe, is going to be the starting center from here on out. That's going to help out the running game a little bit. But more realistically, the biggest reason is the Raiders need a fresh start. I'm not going to try to speak on behalf of the entire nation here, but I really do think that the Raiders need a fresh start. Do the Raiders have a better chance of winning with Desmond Ridder than they do Gardner Minshew? I actually don't know if it makes any difference. And some people might say, no, Mitch, we need the tank. I think that the Raiders are still not going to be that good of a football team, even if Desmond starts, even if Gardner Minshew starts. The other reason, though, why I believe that it's Ridder time is, if not now, then when would it even happen? You're in your bye week. And I know that Antonio Pierce said that he's probably going to give his players an entire week off, which I don't think is a smart thing to do considering where this team is, considering AP's job's on the line, considering that we just fired 3 coaches. But if you're not going to start Desmond Ridder when you fire an OC, bring in a new offensive guy in Norv Turner, going to name Scott Turner an OC, when you actually look at the way Turner has ran his past offenses, I do think that somebody like Desmond is actually a better fit than somebody like Gardner Minshew. Now, if you told me it was Gardner Minshew that played for the Colts last season, I'll take Gardner Minshew on the Colts last season. But that's not it. To me, you got to at least see what Desmond can do if you're Antonio Pierce, because if you keep rolling with Gardner, I don't think that you're going to have a job. And to at least say that you tried all the options possible, I think that that's what AP's got to do. And then here's the other reason. Aiden O'Connell's not going to be back until Week 13. When Aiden went down, he suffered a thumb injury against the Rams. They put him on IR, which means he's out at least 4 games. The injury was a 4 to 6 week injury, But when you're put on short-term IR, it's 4 games that you're out. So the first one was the Chiefs. Then it was the Bengals. Now we have a bye week. Then week 11, and then end up looking at week 12 are the 2 other games that he's going to be out, which then puts Aiden back on track to come back ready to go Black Friday football game against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Which, hey, if we won last season, maybe we can win again, right? My point is, though, I want Aiden O'Connell to be the Raiders starting quarterback once he returns. Unless Desmond Ridder wins his next 2 starts, I think a lot of Raiders fans are a little bit more confident in AOC, and they want to be able to show this team that we're not totally giving up. We're in a very difficult situation right now as a Raider fan because I want them to have a better draft pick. But I also want the Raiders to be able to figure out a way to show that we got to be able to prove that either AP's the guy or AP's not the guy. And the way that you're going to be able to figure out if AP's the guy or not is you got to start switching some things around. If Antonio Pierce was really bad with Luke Getsy and Gardner Minshew, let's see what Antonio Pierce and this team looks like with Desmond Ridder and Scott Turner. Let's see what Antonio Pierce looks like with Aiden O'Connell and Scott Turner. The more and more different situations we look at, I think paints a better picture of figuring out what type of coach Antonio Pierce is, because if we do end up getting a quarterback next season, we got to make sure that we have a good head coach and we have a good play caller, because both of those things are extremely important for the future success of the Las Vegas Raiders.